as ever, a big welcome back to Mr. Sensible's channel. Today we're going to have a look at a little video by a guy called Low Earth Observer, who is always making pronouncements on how the Earth is flat. He's immensely qualified apparently, as he is a crane driver. But this is not his usual sort of stuff. Today he is looking at the SOHO satellite filming a comet headed sunward. Of course, Mr. Low Earth Observer thinks it's a load of tosh. Let's have a look at why.
Apparently, we're going to see a comet's death dive into the sun, snapped by the SOHO spacecraft, which is a NASA and European Space Agency's Solar Observatory telescope.
Cool. So a real scientific observation. I like it.
So we're going to have a quick look at that, and then we're going to highlight the obvious problems with the nonsense they're pushing.
Yes, obviously.
We know this already, but I will keep highlighting their silly little games. I mean, SOHO, for example, which is the name of this spacecraft, is the red light district in London.
Yes, Soho's an area of London, but it's also the Solar and Heliospheric Observatory. SOHO.
They're just admitting to us they're dirty little rats.
Or perhaps you've just admitted how your mind works, as the first thought that popped up was the prostitution area of London.
Even before we played the footage. Now let's have a look. Fair use. We're analysing ridiculous claims made by pantomime companies and governments, and then we're just calling them out on it. Simple as that. Fair use. We're going to get the usual nonsense, not type of music to get us to try and believe this rubbish. Billions and billions and billions of pounds spent on this pantomime each year.
Billions and billions and billions. But I think you'll find the SOHO Observatory costs around 1 billion. Facts, bitches. They work.
And this is the best they can provide. They've made it look like a telescope. Surprise, surprise, the sun is hidden behind the middle bit of the telescope.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Low Earth Observer. I feel a cheese experiment coming on. We'll have a look at that a bit later on in this video. I can't wait.
So we get some music, what looks like 1980s Atari graphics. Absolutely ridiculous.
Well, what else do you expect to see then? You've got that black disc covering up the sun for some strange reason, and you can see the stars, and you can see the coronal gas streaming away from the sun. You can pretty much see everything that the SOHO Observatory telescope is meant to show you. What else do you expect to see? Herds of wildebeest majestically streaming across the horizon. You're weird.
And here's the comet, just highlighted by the arrow bottom right.
Absolutely amazing. That comet was one of the Kreutz sun-grazing comets, whose orbit takes them very close to the sun. This one's got a little too close and has dived in. Absolutely stunning imagery. You should be happy. There's your pictures that are proving a heliocentric solar system.
Ridiculous.
Oh no, it isn't.
For one, I thought comets were made of ice, and that thing would have melted way, way, way before it hit the sun.
Well, they're not entirely ice, but ice, frozen gas, gravelly bits. Basically a dirty great snowball. And how do you know it would have melted away way before the sun. Do you know the size of that comet? I don't. Look at comets like Halley's Comet, which comes around, I think it's every 76 years. Every time more of it melts. These things are huge. They could be hundreds and hundreds of feet across. Maybe more.
Not that we saw the sun, of course, it's hidden behind the centre bit of the supposed telescope.
If you go out on a sunny day and there's an aircraft that happens to be flying in the area of the sky where the sun is, can you stare at it? Don't do that, you'll hurt your eyes. But you won't see it because of the brightness of the sun. That comet might look bright because it's in comparison to no other light. If you have the sun there with your camera or your telescope focused on it, all you're going to see is a bright glare. It's just shading the sun. We're not looking at the sun, we're looking at stuff around the sun. So block out that vast light source to give yourself a chance to see it. This is not rocket science. Although you do need some rocket science to get the Soho up there in the first place, I must admit.
But that comet or icy ball, bearing in mind, ice melts above 0 Celsius. What's the temperature of the sun? Let's have a quick look. Bear with me. So apparently the temperature of the sun on the surface of the sun is 5,505 Celsius. And of course, on a normal day here in the UK, on a hottish day I should say, you can get 20 to 26 sort of Celsius.
You get icebergs that break off from the Arctic and Antarctic ice shelf. They can last months. They're sat in water above 0 degrees, with air that can be above 0 degrees. They're not going to melt in just a few minutes. We're not talking about a couple of ice cubes in a drink of spirits. These are huge chunks of ice. And that comet may be way bigger than your average iceberg. In fact, I'm sure it probably is.
And of course, I'm 93 million miles away from this thing. So how on earth can this comet enter the sun if it's ice and ice melts above 0 Celsius?
Of course, we haven't seen it enter the sun. We've seen it pass behind that black circle which is shading the sun. I'm sure that even as it passes behind there, it's still hundreds and hundreds of thousands of miles from the surface of the sun. And you can see that great big tail streaming away from it. That is the comet melting.
And 93 million miles away on Earth, in the UK, I can have 25 Celsius, which of course would destroy melting ice. But this comet can fly into the sun. All right, it showed its trail as it got closer, started to melt. But it shouldn't have even been anywhere near it on the screen. It would have melted.
Like I said about distance, if you're saying it shouldn't have been anywhere near where it was without melting, show us, tell us how far away it was in that time. You've made a claim that it's too close. Can you actually tell us how close it was? I think not.
If I can get 93 million miles away, temperatures of 20 Celsius to, well, the other day it was 32. Yeah, which obviously destroys ice. Then please explain to me how on earth a comet can go into the sun.
I think you need to look. Was that Gollum with you chuckling away? I think that you need to look into what temperature actually is. You should also look into this strange thing called albedo, which I would bet my bottom dollar you've never heard of before. I'll leave you to look that up.
I'm sure there's some magical, mystical pantomime story related to the tribe, the cannibal tribe that love to fly through vacuums on balls. I'm sure you've got some wonderful excuse, backed by a ridiculous cartoon. Let's just have a quick look at this satellite that supposedly took this footage or these images via telescope. Bear with me. Oh, here it is. I mean, look at the state of this thing. Why do people believe this? How do people justify this to themselves?
Well, what you're showing is a very basic computer-generated image of what the satellite looks like. Here's a real photo of it during manufacture. Not so much look at the state of it now. That's a rather expensive, rather high-tech piece of precision engineering and electronics and lenses and whatnot. Here is an example of the imagery, a mass coronal ejection from the sun. And here's another without the central sunshade. And yet another when processed via computer to bring out more information. Stunning stuff. And now, the long-awaited cheese experiment.
Here is a small piece of cheese on the end of a skewer. This represents a comet. Just up here we have a little light, a little LED light. That will be our sun. Right, so we're aimed at the sun. I can barely look at it. Let's bring our comet. Can you see it? Closer, closer. Can you see it at all? I can't. It's there. That is why there's a shade, because you'll see bugger all if you're looking full on at the sun. And that is just with a little LED spotlight. About 11 watts, I think. Mr. Level Earth Observer, you have just been busted by a tiny little ball of cheese.
Well, Mr. Level Earth Observer, I am sure that you are a very professional and very capable crane operator. But perhaps you should stick to that and not solar imagery via satellite. I hope everyone's enjoyed this video tonight. Once again, I have. Big thank you to all my visitors, commenters, subscribers, and a special big thanks to my patrons. There is still a chance to vote in the Conspirator Cheese Awards. The link is up there for the nomination show. Watch the show and then place your anonymous vote. Forgot what the word was then. Anyway, hope to see you all back again soon. Until next time, stay sensible.
Shut up and sit down.